We've got a bit of a mixed signal here in this jobs report. More payrolls than expected and a higher unemployment rate than expected. Which survey, household or establishment, is reflecting reality?
Well, this is another very strong jobs report. I'm not going to get tired of coming here and telling you that we are continuing to experience very strong, stable, and steady growth. So it's 272,000 jobs created last month. The unemployment rate has remained at or below 4% for 30 months straight. That's still the longest since the 1960s. And at the same time, real wages, over the year are up 4.1%. So workers are doing better in an economy in which the president has said, when we focus on workers and worker well-being, we're going to do what's right for the economy and for the country.
When you look under the hood, you find that 400,000, even more than 400,000 people left the labor force in May. The participation rate is not back where it was before COVID right now. How do you explain that? Well,
so let's say, the prime age labor force participation rate remains very, very strong. And it's worth noting that, again, women's labor force participation rate hit another historic high. So last month we said it was the highest since 1948 when this data was begun to be collected. It's now a little bit higher than that even. So women continue to power our economic recovery. At the same time, we are seeing, again, strong participation. People are in the job market. People have come off the sidelines. People are looking for jobs, and they're finding them. Where there has been a little bit of a, very small uptick in the unemployment rate. Again, still at or below 4% for the longest stretch in decades,
sure.
But has to do with young people ages 20 to 24 who are in a bit of transition, really, if we think about May, right? May is a period of transition for all of us parents with kids who graduate and maybe move and are looking for different jobs during that time.
You can tell a great story and put a great headline number on that unemployment story, as you are right now. But when you look under the hood, you do see some elements of weakness compared to the payroll survey. And I wonder, while you're happy where it is now, if you worry about where we're going to be 6 months from now, if this is a slowing job market.
Well, the payroll survey really is the gold standard when it comes to the unemployment rate, right? This is the, it's the largest by far of any data set, including the household survey, that is used. And so, again, I don't think there's any way to paint this as other than continued strong, stable, and steady growth under President Biden's leadership, and proof of his theory that if we invest in America, we can create good jobs in communities and, crowd in private investment in order to do that. And as I travel the country, I'm seeing the benefits of that.
We've talked a lot about the impact that immigration has on our job market. Can be for better or worse, depending on the trend that you're looking at. And there's an analysis from Steve Englander at Standard Chartered Bank that we looked at this week that estimates about half of the job growth since October can be attributed to undocumented migrants, that it's somewhere in the area of 109,000 a month. If the president's executive order put in place just days ago lowers the threshold, lowers the numbers of undocumented immigrants entering the country, what does that mean for the job market? Do you see numbers like that in your modeling?
I mean, I haven't seen that study. I would actually question those numbers based on what we see. Right? This is a situation where, one, we're not talking about dividing a small pie into smaller pieces. We're talking about a much bigger pie overall. So more jobs, more people in the labor market, more opportunity for all. Since the president came into office, again, we've talked about this, about 15 million jobs created. That is 15 million families, 15 million individuals who are having the benefits of a good job that might not have had that before. I would also say that it is true that there has been, immigration-based growth also, and that has been true throughout our nation's history, right? That immigrants have helped to do jobs and help fuel the economy, but the majority of this job growth that we're talking about has gone to native-born workers.
Well, talk to me about the other side of this story, and that's immigration reform. H-1B, H-2B. We spend all day talking about border security in Washington. What does our job market need in terms of attracting talent from other countries legally?
I mean, it's such an important question, right? This is why, since day one, President Biden has called for the kind of comprehensive immigration reform that would address, some of the challenges that our system has created.
What would our job market look like with that help?
What would our job market look like with
if you got that reform?
Right. Well, so we do administer. We have in this administration increased the number of H-2B workers that have come in. We recently did a rule around H-2A workers, making sure that when migrant workers come to this country through legal means, that they're also protected, right? That they are protected for their own good, but also so that their being here doesn't take away from the good wages in those industries. So we, but the bigger picture is that there does need to be comprehensive reform. The president has called for that, and frankly, Congress needs to do its job. There's
something that I don't want to get too deep in the weeds called the birth-death model that our analysts at Bloomberg Economics are looking at that would suggest some of the companies that we've seen closing might not be reflected yet in the numbers that we saw in this monthly survey. Based on layoff announcements, corporate closures, where do we look in the middle of summer when these numbers start to emerge?
Well, we will come out every month to report the data that we have, but everything that we have seen this past month, this past year, as well as the last year since President Biden came to office, is historic job growth. More jobs created during the same time period than any president in our history, and continued low levels of unemployment. Again, historic lows, and more opportunity to come, right? The investments in the president's Investing in America agenda, many of them are still coming out. And that's why this summer I'm going across the country talking about Good Job Summer and focusing on the importance of what a good job does for families.
The Good Job Principles Summer Tour. You're like Beyonce. You're launching a national tour, and it's not a mistake. I see some of the states you're going to, like Pennsylvania and Michigan. What is your message to voters in those states?
Well, my message to working people is that we see you, we have your back, we know that you have talent and desire, and we want to create the kinds of opportunities that will allow working people to have a good job where they can be paid a living wage and live a secure life. And our message generally is that when you build a workforce that is ready, that is trained, that is skilled, that pulls the full talent of the American people, it's good for employers, it's good for our economy, and we see that time and time again in these jobs numbers.
Yeah. Getting back to the household survey, which is important to us and our viewers and listeners, the fact that it reflects agriculture, the fact that it reflects what's happening in people's households, does that not raise the level of importance of the household survey at this point when we look at that against payrolls to get a sense of not even as much where we are now, but where we're going?
I mean, I think the bigger, the answer is the payroll survey is the survey that tells us how many jobs have been created, what industries they've been created in. And again, the growth we're talking about is not just single industry, right? It has been for the entire time, but certainly this last month is no different, very, very broad-based. We saw growth in leisure and hospitality. We saw it in construction. We saw it in professional services. We saw it in healthcare. And so, there's really, the numbers don't lie. It's really, a broad-based, solid, continued growth. And I think that coveted soft landing that so many people bet against.
Well, I haven't even mentioned that yet. It's my job to ask you if we're in the soft landing. I haven't heard words like Goldilocks this morning. What's your broader 30,000-foot view on that? You're looking at your slice of the economy, that's the labor market. Is a soft landing intact?
I think so. I mean, again, it's the kind of thing where we're always vigilant about where the economy is going. But based on where we were, remember in 2021, right? The president came into office, COVID was raging, there was no national strategy to address it, unemployment was very, very high, people didn't know if they were going to get toilet paper if they went to the supermarket. And now we have historic job growth, low levels of unemployment. I think it is the very definition of a soft landing.
You mentioned COVID. It's not the first time we've brought this up as a barometer, maybe a baseline for where we are now versus where we were before the pandemic. It's still impossible to forecast, isn't it? You see these payroll numbers blowing off the charts based on estimates not just by the government, but by Wall Street and economists who are a lot smarter than I am. When will we be able to get a handle on what comes next?
Well, I mean, I think the reality is that's why we don't look at any 1 month's numbers as over relying on them to tell a story. But the story of this economy from January 2021 until now is of steady, stable growth, shared prosperity, and more investments to come. We know that that there's more work to do. We're also seeing the lowest levels of black-white unemployment in a very long time. So it's equitable growth too, and that matters a lot.
What would a second Biden term mean for the job market?
I think we continue to deliver, right? We continue to build a strong economy. We continue to invest in American industry in a way that hasn't been done in decades. So building, restoring roads and bridges, making sure that every family who turns on the faucet gets clean drinking water, making sure that everybody breathes clean air and has access to high-speed, reliable internet. Those are the kind of infrastructure investments. We want to build the things that we invented, right? So bringing manufacturing back to the United States, I think it means, continued opportunity for the American people.
Will you still be in this building if there's a second term?
Well, I don't want to make predictions about that. I do serve at the pleasure of the president, but it has been an honor to help to deliver on that vision.
Well, I'm glad you could join us on another Jobs Day, and we'd love to meet you back here in a month.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time, as always. The Acting Secretary of Labor, Julie Su.